Hello everybody, my name is Naushad and today we are going to learn about data type. In this lesson, we will learn about the various types of values that JavaScript can work with and how we can use them in our code. In JavaScript, every value is associated with a specific type. Imagine types as different categories that classify the value. For example, a value can belong to the string type, which represents text, or the number type, which represents the numerical value. Now JavaScript has a total of 8 basic data types. Don't worry, we won't cover all the nitty-gritty details right now, but I will give you a general overview, and in our upcoming lessons we will explore each type in depth. So let's talk about variables. Variable is like a container that can hold different types of data. It is pretty cool because you can put a string inside a variable at a one moment and later change its content to a number without any problem. For example, see how the variable message first held the string hello and later changed its value to the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In JavaScript, we have the freedom to switch the type of value that variable stores, making it a dynamically typed in language. This means that although we do have specific data type, variables are not restricted to any particular type. It gives us a lot of flexibility in how we write our code. So remember, in JavaScript, values have type and we can store different types of value in variables. This knowledge will lay the foundation for our upcoming lessons, where we will explore each data type in more detail. Now we're going to talk about numbers. In JavaScript, numbers are used to represent both whole numbers like 1, 2, 3 and number with decimal points like 12.345. We can do all sort of cool things with numbers such as multiplying them, dividing them, adding them, subtracting them, and more. Now besides regular numbers, there are some special numeric values we need to know about. The first one is infinity. Infinity is like a never-ending number. It's greater than any other number we can imagine. We can get infinity as a result of dividing any number by 0 or simply by referring to it directly just like this. The next specific value is nan, which stands for not a number. This happens when we try to do an incorrect or undefined mathematical operations like dividing a non-numbers by 2. For example, now here's something interesting about nan. It's sticky. What that means is that any further mathematical operation we try to do with nan will also result in nan. Just take a look over this as well. If there is a nan somewhere in a mathematical expression, it will propagate to a whole result. Except for one exception. Nan raised to the power of 0 is 1. Now let's talk about mathematical operations are safe. The good news is that doing math in JavaScript is safe. We can perform various operations like dividing by 0 or treating non-numeric string as numbers without the script coming to a halt with an error. Instead, in the worst case, we will get nan as a result. Keep in mind that these special numeric values formally belong to the numbers type, even though they aren't typically numbers as we usually think of them. In our upcoming lessons on numbers, we will explore more about how to work with numbers in JavaScript. So let's get ready to have some fun with maths in our code. string. Now let's talk about big init. Now you have already know that in JavaScript, the number type can represent integers up to a certain limit, which is 2 to the power 53 minus 1, or this digit. If we go beyond this limit, there can be a precision error because the fixed 64-bit storage can hold all the digits. So although JavaScript can technically store large numbers up to this value, it won't be precise for very big integers outside the safe range. For example, if we try to add 1 or 2 to the maximum safe integer, JavaScript will give us the same result because it can't represent the exact value for such large numbers. For example, and now sometimes in programming, we need to work with really big integers, bigger than what the number type can handle. That's what BigInit come to the rescue. BigInit is a special type recently added to JavaScript, and it allows us to represent an integer of any line. To create a BigInit, we simply add an int at the end of the number. For example, now the exciting part is that BigInit can handle huge number like this without any precision error. Now I know that BigInit might not be needed for most of our coding tasks, but in situations where we require ultra big integers like in cryptography or microsecond precision timestamp, BigInit comes extremely useful. Okay, let's talk about strings. In JavaScript, a string is a sequence of characters and it always surrounded by quotes. There are three types of quotes we can use to define strings: double quotes, single quotes, backticks. Now, double and single quotes are pretty much the same in JavaScript. We can use either of them to create strings and it won't make much of a difference. But here is where backticks stands out. Backticks give us some super cool functionality. We can emp variables and expressions right into a string by wrapping them in this. Let me show you some example. The expression inside $ curly braces get evaluated and result become a part of the string. This is fantastic because we can put anything inside the backticks, variables, arithmetic expressions like 1 plus 2 or even more complex things. But remember, this embedding magic can only be done with backticks. Double and single quote don't have this awesome functionality. Let's give another example. Okay, now let's talk about no character type in JavaScript. Now just a quick note, in JavaScript there is no specific character type like in some other languages. Here, every individual character is treated as a string. So whether you have an empty string or string with one character or a string with many characters, they are all considered strings. We will learn more about strings in our upcoming videos dedicated only to string. But for now, remember the magic of backticks and how they allow us to make our string more dynamic and fun. Now let's talk about Boolean. Boolean type has only two values, true and false. Think of it as a switch with two positions, on and off. And in our case, yes and no. We commonly use Boolean to store information like yes, it is correct, or no, it is incorrect. It is like when we answer questions with a simple yes or no. Let's see some examples. You see, we can use Boolean to represent situation where we have two clear outcomes. But wait, there is more. Boolean values can also come as a result of comparison. Imagine we have a comparison like this. The comparison 4 is greater than 1 asks, is 4 greater than 1? And the answer is true because 4 is indeed greater than 1. So the variable is greater, get assigned the value true. And guess what? We can also use Boolean with logical operators to make even more complex decision in our code. But don't worry, we will cover that in depth in our video logical operators. So to sum it up, Booleans are like our little helpers when we want to represent yes or no, true or false situation, and they play a crucial role in making decision in our program. In our next lesson or logical operator, we will dive deeper into how to use Boolean to make our code even smarter. Until then, practice using true and false in your code and have fun coding. Okay, now let's talk about null. Now we have learned about various data types like numbers, strings, and booleans, but null is a bit different. It's not part of any of those types we discussed before. Null is a unique value that stands on its own. It represents the idea of nothing, empty, or value unknown. Let's see some examples. Here the variable age is assigned the value null. It is like saying we don't know the age at the moment, so we use null to represent this unknown value. Now it's important to note that in JavaScript, null is not the same as a reference to a non-existing object or a null pointer, like in some other programming languages. It is just a spatial value that denotes the absence of any meaningful data. So whenever you see null in your code, think of it as a placeholder for we don't know or there is nothing here yet. It can be handy when we need to initialize a variable but don't have a specific value to assign it at the moment. As we continue our journey in JavaScript, we will encounter null in different situations and you will get more comfortable using it. Just remember, null is all about represent nothingness or an unknown state in our program.